how can you as a whole human become the best version of that human? Become the person you were born to be and remove the frictions, either the biological, physiological, psychological frictions to that.
Welcome to Be Well, to today's podcast. Today's guest is David Stewart, founder of AGEIST and SuperAge, two media platforms reimagining what's possible after 50. And yeah, I mean, before building these brands, David also spent decades as an award-winning photographer. And David, it's great to have you here. Maybe to get started, for those who may not know you yet, I mean, I'm based here in Europe, and I think your audience may be mostly in the US. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your background at first and what brought you to AGEIST and SuperAge?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm 66 now. When I was about 54, as you mentioned, I had this career as a photographer. So I worked at sort of the highest levels of that. I lived in Paris, lived in New York. I worked for magazines. I did big stuff like American Express and Nike and things like that. And what I was noticing was the pictures I was taking of people, the people were staying the same age. They're all like, 22 to 28. And I'm getting older. And all this media that was aimed at people my age was really medicalized and ultimately infantilizing. I didn't like that because none of my friends were like that. There was all this sort of goofy sort of like, walking on the beach with the golden retriever very slowly, don't walk fast. And it was like, who are these people? So we started AGEIST as really a curiosity, just an investigation to understand why these were really smart people at these companies, and they were getting it so wrong. And so much of the broader media conversation was just inaccurate. And we started with, several thousand hours of video interviews. There was a platform there, I think it was called Skype. I don't know, I haven't used Skype in like decades, but like back then, it was like the way we did it. And then we analyzed these things. And so we came to understand what the disconnect was. And then we started AGEIST as a newsletter to 50 of our friends with our great business plan that they would remain our friends. That was really the extent of the ambition. And that has been, so we've had that for 12 years. That's grown substantially. And a lot of the media conversation in, dealing with people who are over, I don't know what the age is, like 45 or so, has really shifted. I don't think we necessarily caused that, but we've noticed that shift. And then we started SuperAge back in November of last year. And what we noticed during AGEIST was that in AGEIST, sort of the main thing we do is we do a profile every week of someone who we think is we call like a North Star hidden in plain sight. And they're just regular people who are living, this very vital, vivid, forward-leaning way. And they, everybody has challenges and problems, but it's like, okay, like, how do you deal with it? How do you overcome it? So that's the main thing in AGEIST. And we noticed that even though we never talk about anybody under 50, 40% of our audience was under 50. And something like 20% was like under 30. And so what we realized was all these things we were talking about were resonating up and down the age column. And SuperAge is more about how to live your best life at whatever age you're at. So it's up and down. It's not really age specific because, if I need to drink water just as much as you do. We both need to like figure out how to breathe better. We both need to eat correctly. The exercise is not all that different from somebody who's 25 and somebody who's 75. So these were issues that we realized were resonating for a wide variety of people. And SuperAge is now, I think we have, it's not quite a year we've been around. We're like 1.2 million people. And we actually had to like stop taking new people in because we outgrew our tech. So the tech stack's all being rebuilt now. And there'll be some changes that'll get launched, I'm hoping, in about a month.
Incredible. Great. Thanks for the introduction. Could you, you already alluded to SuperAge and to AGEIST and how you built those media companies, let's put it this way. Could you maybe in a nutshell, introduce us, maybe for people who have never heard of you guys? What is AGEIST? What is SuperAge? And, tell us a bit about the brands, what it's all about.
Yeah. So as I said, AGEIST was really more age specific. So AGEIST is sort of in a nutshell, hashtag it's not too late. So, like, don't believe this hype that you can't do stuff at a certain age. There's all this nonsense out there that, like, after a certain age, you can't learn, you can't do certain things. And all right. So the level set, it's true. I cannot run now like the way I used to run when I was 20. This is true. But there's a lot of other stuff I can do that it was just like beyond my capacity at 20. So we can learn things. We can start businesses. We can become very fit. There's a lot of stuff out there. And it's important to expand people's imagination, because our greatest challenge really as human beings is this poverty of imagination of what we think is possible. So at Ageist, we don't tell people what to do. We just say, this is on the menu. Like, you want to do this thing? Okay, here, this is how you can do it. Now, if you just want to, like, eat donuts and smoke and drink yourself to death, well, have at it. It's your life. You can do whatever you want to do. But if you want to live in this other way, we can show you how to do that. And it involves, there's a certain amount of age, like confusion that happens, because, like, I remember what my parents were like at 66. They're not like me. It's a different thing. So when like people my age were growing up, we just never expected it to be like this. What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to, like, retire and go fishing and play bridge and, like, die in 5 years? Well, okay, you can do that if you want. So that's sort of what Aegis is about. It's like, it's not too late. There's a lot of stuff you can do. The changes that you can make to yourself physically in your 50s, 60s, 70s are dramatic, but it's hard. And we tell people this, like, you have to take an action, and that action may be temporarily unpleasant to you. But remember, like, when you were like 18 or 19, everything was confusing and hard and disorienting. And so you can do this. And SuperAge is more about sort of physicality, health and wellness, mental well-being, community, a lot of the issues that we see globally in the world today. People are lonely. People are, a lot of younger people are feeling really disconnected. They're feeling overwhelmed, which is not to say people my age don't feel that way, but it's more around living your best life, but it's not age specific. And in both of these companies, we put a lot of emphasis on how things look, because I really feel that, at a certain age, you don't suddenly become, unless you're visually impaired, which is possible, you still recognize beauty. And I think that's a really important attribute. We don't, especially at SuperAge, like, we don't dumb things down. We talk to real scientists. We talk to real doctors. There's an enormous amount of just nonsense and noise out on social media. Like, I mean, there are people who are getting their health information from TikTok. Like, are you out of your mind? We try and demystify these things and help people in a gentle way. We don't scream. We don't yell. We don't go, there's a lot of these people, the Hubermans of the world and their protocols, like, on a full moon, eat half a tablespoon of this. I don't know, whatever. That's just kind of nonsense. So we keep it simple and helping people the best that we can.
Very interesting. You also always have to be cautious when, giving advice, or let's say giving advice on certain protocols, that you don't become neurotic about these tips, right? So it's very important. David, let's talk maybe a bit more about also macro trends that you're seeing in aging and longevity. I mean, you are in touch with tons of people in the industry and experts. And I mean, you yourself have a podcast, so quick promotion in that way for your podcast, if people are interested. Could you maybe share with us, from your view, what are currently maybe the biggest shifts happening in health, wellness, and longevity right now? Maybe also especially regarding the 50 plus demographic. I know you're also now targeting another age group. Maybe give us an answer for both maybe for the demographic of 50 plus and also overall regarding aging.
Well, I think there are a few big things, and they're sort of a Venn diagram how these things are overlapping and linked. But the first thing is people's mindset has changed. So people believe now that they have much greater agency over their health outcomes. That was not the case 20 years ago. So people believe if they take a certain action, there will in the future be better outcomes because of that action they've taken. So that is enormous. If you look at really the the supplement industry, the wearables industry, the gyms, like all this stuff. What is that based upon? That's based upon a belief system that has shifted to saying, if I take this action, there will be in the future a different outcome if I do not take this action. And that was not the case. So, earlier it was more about, I just sort of need to accept this grim reality of some kind of outcome that I'm not in control of. So that's changed. And parallel to that, the way people interact with all their practitioners is quite different. It's more of a partnership now. So people are coming in very informed or very misinformed, but they're not coming in just like, well, doc, what do you think? They want to, there's much more of a back and forth, and treating health practitioners in a partnership. Now the doctors are much better informed. I mean, these are experts, but you can come in with information and have a different kind of a conversation than you would have 20 or 30 years ago. So that's sort of on the mindset shift. The other huge thing that's happening is AI, computational biology. So, right now, there's an enormous amount of inputs we can get, hundreds of biomarkers from a blood test. You can test your gut. You can do various scans. There's like a whole bunch of stuff. Wearable information. What do you do with all this? You come into a doctor with that and they're just going to be like, ugh, I don't know. It's too much, right? You're going to flood people. So there are various AIs out there now and in development that will very much help and personalize medical treatment, wellness outcomes. What do you train these AIs on is one thing. Like just putting this stuff into ChatGPT is, all right, you're going to get something. I don't know if that's the best idea. And then, AI is also using for drug discovery. Phase 1 drug trials are now moving to AI. So that dramatically increases the rapidity with which medications come in. And I think that we're going to start to see an intersection of these things, this sort of the personalized medicine, and then these personalized drugs and things that are specific. And if there's the one huge thing is the GLP-1s, like that. I mean, I just want to confess, when these came out, there was a drug in the 90s called fen-phen, which killed a whole bunch of people. And it was like the diet drug of the moment. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is like fen-phen part 2. But it's not. I mean, there's a lot of downsides to them, muscle loss, gastric issues, things like that. But I feel like every week I'm reading something about, being GLP-1s used for bipolar, for addiction, it's just like on and on. I know physicians who personally microdose GLP-1s purely for the anti-inflammatory effect on the brain. So these things are really groundbreaking, and I am absolutely sure there's going to be more of these sort of things coming along that we don't know about yet.
I think the flywheel effect is just getting started in that space, probably. One question I like to ask, I mean, you're operating in the, let's say, aging space, but there's tons of definitions and noise in the broader, let's say, health industry, right? You have longevity, you have wellness, you have health. I'm doing the podcast of the business of health and wellness, so maybe I haven't decided yet. But there's so many terms flying around, and it also maybe even illustrates that the industry is very much fragmented in a way. How do you, or what's your opinion on, let's say, that confusion about having one or not having one term that actually describes what you or what your peers in the industry are actually doing?
I think the problem here is, what are the metrics? So we use all these terms, but we just use them as, they're very non-specific. So give me a number on longevity. What does that mean? Like, tell me, does that mean you're going to live to 100? You're going to live to 120? Like wellness. What does that mean? So if you have diabetes, there's a number I can put on that. There's, these sort of other conditions, disease states you can put a number on, and they can be quantified. The non-disease states, the sort of optimal health, that's harder to define. We don't use the words optimize and optimal because it's a little too like tech bro sort of that stuff. But that's sort of what we're talking about here. I mean, we're talking about how can you as a whole human become the best version of that human? Become the person you were born to be and remove the frictions, either the biological, physiological, psychological frictions to that. There's a lot of sort of language around that. I agree 100%. I would rather like a word that says this, that, is wellness mean you go to a spa once a week? For some people, yeah. For the other people, it's like, oh, this is my VO2 max. Okay, that we can put a number on that. So it's to answer your question, it's a mess. It's just a mess.
Yeah, but you're trying to sort of navigate in that mess, right? To sort of get your audience and talk about these topics. So it's you're doing
Yeah,
something great.
I mean, this is language normal people have some idea of what it means, and so we use it. Mostly because there's just not there's not commonly adopted language around this that we know of that makes sense.
One aspect I find quite interesting, I listened to a podcast actually from McKinsey recently about health, wellness trends, whatever you want to name it. But one aspect they actually mentioned was that there's an opportunity in, let's say, untapped customer segments, right, to build things. I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, optimization is oftentimes associated maybe with the tech bro that wants to optimize him or herself. But I mean, if we look at the broad society, there are different issues. What I find very interesting is, I mean, in the beginning, you targeted 50 plus demographics. I'm not sure if they are, targeted, let's say, appropriately by companies or by solutions. If there's maybe, would you even say that they're even underserved, or that there are maybe a lot more demographics that are underserved by, let's say, the health and wellness longevity space or businesses in that space?
I think the problem is one of framing and communication. I think, like I read today, I think Aura just, I think the valuation is now 11 billion. I think they just raised like a $456 million round. So I see Aura rings on people from like 80 to 18. I think that when we talk about specific demographics, so that becomes, you need to be careful with a couple of things here. So the one thing is nobody wants to be part of a special interest group, because then you're just ghettoized, right? It's like, oh, you people, you've got this problem. Okay. That's not sort of people don't feel so great about that. But also people like to be aspirationally seen, heard, acknowledged. So you sort of, is marketing as people get older, it's so much harder and more complicated than youth marketing. Youth marketing is like the easiest thing in the world because you essentially have a monoculture. It's really simple. But once people get older, you have this wildly split demographic around all kinds of different factors. And you really have to pick your lane, and you have to say, okay, this is the sort of person I want to talk to. So like we speak to a very specific kind of person who is open-minded and optimistic and curious and wants to live this. And they believe, like I mentioned earlier, they have a belief system that says that they can impact their health outcomes.
I mean, in essence, also with your media company, you're also building a community, right? What role does that play, right? I mean, oftentimes it helps to, have a community when you want to achieve maybe your
Yeah.
personal health goals.
Yeah.
What's the role of community building when it comes to building both your businesses of your media companies?
Working on that. So, there's digital and there's in real life. And so where we're moving with that is we considered doing a digital version, and we still probably will at some point. The management of that to keep it from getting cuckoo is, just like, log on to X one day and you can see what that looks like. So I think where we're going to start with this is in real life. So we're starting dinner parties. We're starting a whole series of athletic events, which will be culminating in a large sort of festival games, sort of like a games festival thing that we'll be doing next summer. I like the idea of people seeing each other in person. I think that becomes more memorably sticky. I think digital has a place. This is something we haven't really figured out the best way to do to keep the integrity of things, but to still let people communicate with us and communicate with each other in a way that is sort of semi-managed.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you talked about it. I mean, let's say younger people also feeling a lot more lonely, right? So, I mean, oftentimes now you're also experiencing a shift, right? People are drinking less alcohol. Maybe they want to find alternative places to meet up and get to know
Yeah.
each other. And it's
Yeah,
it's
exactly. So that's exactly where we're going with this. You know, you see the burgeoning of things like run clubs or these like mass sauna experiences. I'm in New York. There's a sauna here. I think it takes 120 people, and they do raves in it. It's like awesome. That's
the
great.
other ship.
Other ship, yeah, yeah. Other ship's great.
We have
So,
also another ship now in Zurich. It recently started. I talked to the
oh,
founder. It was
wonderful,
incredible. Yeah. So the movement is coming over to Europe.
right? It's like people want to hang out with other people, and so that's where we're going with this. I think that's where we're headed first, and then the digital connection is later.
But do you have any concrete or more detailed ideas how you would sort of make that, come? How would that look like in practice, those in real life events? Or is it more conceptual ideas that you guys are
No,
brainstorming at the moment?
it's in process.
Okay.
You know, summer 2026, probably late summer, end of August, early September, Park City, Utah, which is a U.S. Olympic site and U.S. Olympic training site. There's a lot of heritage there. So expect a 3-day festival there. There will be games, and these games are different than other games in that they will be principally physically oriented, but they will be around the goal of if you train for these, you will probably live longer. So rather than just feats of strength or endurance or spectacle, for instance, we know one of the like what are the greatest predictors of mortality? So like a couple of them are VO2 max. So okay, one of them will probably be we'll have a spin bike. You get on a bike. How much power can you put out in 4 minutes? So that's predictive of your long-term longevity. How long can you hang on a bar? So grip strength is another predictor. It's in my view, like if you just like spend all day gripping something, that's not going to help. I mean, it helps a little bit, but not really. It's really just if you have good grip strength, it means you're probably strong otherwise. You're picking stuff up. So, you know, we'll have a number of these sort of things. How fast can you make it through an obstacle course? So, mobility, balance, agility. So, there will be a series of these. And I'm meeting about this later this afternoon. So, we've engaged people who've produced large scale things like the Olympics, and this is what we're going to do. So, we're going to have the SuperAge games, and you know, there's a lot of people my age who are, you know, we're constantly training. What are we training for? Like, so one of the things we're going to do is give people a goal. It's like, oh, and so we've spoken to a number of people about this, and universally, that's what people say. They're like, what are the events? Give me the date. I'm there. Because they're like, okay, I've been training for something for 10 years. I'm not quite sure what, but you've just given me a goal. Great. Let's go do that.
Very interesting. I think one aspect I was also thinking about, I'm sharing with you maybe some suggestion. Let's see what you're going to do with it. But the aspect of also maybe practicing together, in
Well,
communities
that's
and
the
also
team thing.
competing together, as a team. Because you can run a
Yeah,
marathon, you can do an Ironman, but you're going to do it
right.
alone. You're going to do the preparation alone. But what about the component of doing it together
Yeah.
with your family, friends, and whoever,
Well,
that's missing?
so I mean, imagine this thing is sort of like a decathlon sort of thing, and you have team Pilates going against team CrossFit.
Exactly.
That's going to be interesting. Or if you have, like, there's a thing in the gym, there are these sleds that you sort of push. Some people call them prowlers. There are others, you put some weights on this thing and it's on artificial turf and you push it. So if
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
person pushes it, okay, that's one thing. If you have two people, they both have to push at the same effort or the thing twirls, right? So there are various different things we can do here for team because the team is critical to the whole thing. To have people together, working together towards some kind of, an end goal. And also I would expect the ratio would probably be 10-1 spectators to participants. But the spectators are part of this whole thing. So there's an educational component to this saying like, okay, if you train this way, like this happens. So it's not just about not the performance, it's the education around it. Talking about like, okay, so we get scientists or longevity people and we say, okay, this is the deal with the grip thing. this is why the grip thing is important. Or we get a cardiologist up on stage and we say, okay, VO2 max, this is why this is important. Aerobic capacity, this is why this is important. Balance, this is why this is important. And this is how you train for this. So that's, unlike like you and I are not going to ever be in the real Olympics, but I'm sorry. I know some of those people. You're not one of them. They're very, very special human beings. So, but this is something that's universal, and it's a universal goal: how to live better, live longer, live healthier.
David, we're very time constrained.
We are.
Maybe
I'm sorry.
Final quick question to let you go. I mean, what's maybe your core mission now, looking, into, let's say, next year's months with regard to AGEIST, SuperAge, and how would you maybe like to have society talk about aging and the lifestyle of aging? What's your core mission? What is it all about?
So,
Feel free to share
that's a big question. First of all, you and I are both aging at the same rate. You're aging and I am aging. A 2-year-old is aging. And I think that one of the things we need to do here is aging is living. So we need to sort of we have different needs at different, life stages, but it's all living. So let's just get clear about that. It's not this sort of special thing, for the most part anyway. The thing that, I'm interested with my companies, I'm interested in impact. I'm interested in showing people how they can become better versions. I'm interested in aligning with their thinking. Some people, it's really sort of hard to change people's base belief system. That doesn't work so well. But you can authenticate the people who are maybe starting to do this, and you can say, this is great. You can do this. We've got you. We can help you out. I think, what powers all of this is me, who there's a famous movie, Marlon Brando movie called On the Waterfront, and he was a boxer. And in one of the things, he's like, I could have been a contender. So this is what I do not want for myself. At some point, I'm going to die. But before that point, I want to be able to say, I have maximized this. I have become I've maximized my potential. I've become the very best version of what I can do, and I've helped the most amount of people. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Great. David, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm curious to see what you are going to be up to with AGEIST, with SuperAge, and with your event next summer.
I expect you to create a team and be there.
Let's talk.
Just let you know, we're going to be playing to win here. So bring your A game.
I got tons of Olympic athletes friends, so it's going to be... They're gonna take care of me, so to compete appropriately. No, thank you very much, David, and hope to see you. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care now. Bye.